And greetings from sunny South Texas. How's everybody doing today? Hope y'all are warm and well. Okay, folks. Today, you're not going to see any comic books today, right? I know that's the emphasis of this channel, the easy comic reader. But today, I want to share with you a couple of things. I want to share with you something that I collect in addition to comic books, and I also want to share with you a resource that could possibly help you in some way. And when you clicked on this, it said podcast, and that's what the resource is about. But we'll talk about that here in a second. But let me share what I have with you today. One of the things that I like when I watch you guys video out there, uh, I like to see in it, like in addition to the comics, what else do you collect, right? Me, uh, I collect a lot of things, but one of my big passions are records, right? Albums, like you see behind me. I collect anything and everything that's cheap. Why, why beat around the bush? The stuff that I have in my collection is probably because nobody else wanted it. I like it. I see something in it. I found it for a good price, and that's what I got here for today, right? So, what do we got today? All right, we've got this. Okay, we've got what probably a lot of you had growing up. You had something like this in your bedroom, uh, you know. And what is it? This is a 45 record carrying case. Okay, this one in particular, I did a little research on it when I bought it, and it's estimated to be anywhere from the 40s to the 1950s. Okay, and I will go ahead and go with that estimate because of the graphics. To me, it looks more like the 50s, right? The 50s rock and roll, things like that. I could say that because of the guitar. It might even go up into the 60s. I don't know. But the dress on the young lady here, things like that. So that's all I'm going to say. It is probably from the 50s. And the reason why I'm holding it so gingerly and the reason why it's wobbling around, I'll tell you that in a second. But right down here, it's got a nice little split. Okay. This thing is pretty much industrial cardboard or whatever you want to call it. Here's the top, by the way. Got a little handle and everything. Yeah, it's cardboard. And when they made it, I don't think they made it to last past the year 2000. So, all right, here we are. However old this is, it's still here. And that's what I love about it. Um, doesn't have any marks on it telling me it was made by this company or that company, nothing like that. So, like I said, I looked at it, tried to find a little bit of information about it. That's about it. But the cool thing about this, right? I picked it up in a junk shop years ago. Didn't pay a whole lot of money for it, or else I would have bought it, right? The cool thing about this though is when I bought it, it was full of records, full of 45s. Boy, when I open this thing up, I was like, heck yeah, I will take it, right? No, if nobody else wants it, I dang sure do. And that could be said for pretty much everything that I have in my collection. I Part of the thrill of the hunt for me is what can I find that brings me joy? What can I find at a cheap price? And everything you see here, right? So these are pretty much the only 45s that I have in my collection. The other 45s that I have are the power records, and I'll probably show y'all those one day. I know I've shared those on live streams that I've been on, but I'll do a video for that. And I do collect record albums. I've got some here. I've got some in another room. And yeah, man, if y'all are interested in these little 45s, maybe you'd be interested in seeing the what you can buy for $1 or less record album. So you're not going to have a whole lot of Beatles and things like that. There's some gems that I have been lucky picked up, but let's focus on the 45s, right? So what I'd like to do today is share these with you. I want to show you each and every one. But in addition to that, I want to share with you this cool resource that was brought to my attention, third party. Okay. Ian, aka Pizza Rat, but aka, Ian and Becca Comics. Ian had mentioned this to Rob, the cheap comic collector, and cheap comic collector told me. So I said, well, let me find out what it is and what it's about. This is called Google LM. Google LM. Okay. And what you can do with this, it's not an app. There's no fee to this, at least not yet. There's not a fee for it. You just literally go to that website. And what you can do is you can take any article, any video, any source that you have, maybe your own files at home. Oh, turn it off. And you can turn that into a podcast. Now, that's not its real intention, but that's basically what it does. And it's a super simple to operate. You upload the source, you literally just copy and paste it, hit the button, and it creates a podcast. Now, the true intention of this is not really a full-blown podcast, but it's actually a study aid. Okay, so you can take something that you're interested in and learn about, place it here, and you've got a podcast to listen to. Now, it is AI generated. As a matter of fact, if you listen to the Hostess comic book ads, that's what I use to create it. And I just want to come out today for the second podcast because that's what you clicked on. Clicked on a podcast, and you're going to hear it in a second, right? Um, I used it making this, but I didn't. I didn't do what I'm doing now. Come up and tell you, hey, this is what this is. So use this. It created a podcast about, and it's actually called A Brief History of 45 Records. So what I like to do now is I like to turn this camera around. I will show you each and every record. I will show you the A side and the flip side, the B side. So a lot of these records are okay. They need some deep cleaning. I've cleaned some. I've listened to a whole lot of them. Even though I've had it for years, I haven't cleaned them all, but I've listened to a lot of them. Some are in great condition. Some of them are not so great. And that's where I have to do the deep cleaning. But so if you guys want to stick around, you want to check this out, like I said, I'll play the podcast right now, and that's how I'm doing this. Okay, I'm not recording. I literally put in a. Y'all go check it out, man. Anything that you're interested in, take the source, put it in there, hit generate. Wait about 5 minutes or less, and you will have a podcast. This is going to be about a 10-minute podcast, and while that thing is playing in the background, well, actually, hopefully make a nice video while it's playing. I'm gonna say turn around so you don't have to see me the whole time. Show you the records. Maybe these records will spark some memories for you. There was a lot. There were some. I mean, I knew a lot of the songs already, but there were some. I was like, hey, what is that, right? And the cool thing about these 45s is, to me, it are the labels, man. So and these are pretty much all of the 45s that I own. I bought them in one shot because I like to buy the record albums. But if I ever see some cool 45s, I'll maybe pick them up. But my focus is buying the albums. But I got an instant collection here the day that I bought this. So let me share this with y'all. I hope you enjoy it. I hope everybody's doing well. And please let me know, what else do you collect other than comic books, right? I've seen some of y'all's collections in your videos, and it always interests me. If I ever go on live shows, I like to, in addition to the comics, I always like to share something else. So here you go. Let's share these. And if you like it, I'm definitely going to do some with some of our record albums, and I'll do podcast with some of the little the junk that I've bought over the years from here and there. Hey, nobody else wants it. I'll take it. So here we go. Appreciate y'all sticking around. Let's flip it around. Let's take a look at these.
All right, let's drop the needle and dive deep into a real classic, shall we? The 7-inch 45 RPM vinyl single. We're going to dig into its history and see why it was such a game changer, and maybe even figure out why people are still spinning these things today.
Yeah, I think a lot of people will be surprised to learn about all the twists and turns, before the 35 became the icon it is today.
That's what we're here for, right? To unearth those hidden stories. So we've got a great source for today's deep dive, an article from the Rockola website called A Short History of 745 Vinyl Singles.
Rockola, the jukebox legends. Makes sense they'd have some insights on this.
Absolutely. So let's get this party started. What was the music scene like before the 45 took over?
Well, before the 45, the 78 RPM record was king,
Oh, yeah, the old 78s.
Yeah, these were 10-inch shellac discs.
Shellac.
Yeah, shellac. Pretty bulky and fragile, as you can imagine.
Not exactly what you'd call portable.
Not at all. Definitely not pocket-sized.
So I guess if that was all there was, people just made it work.
Exactly. But a war of the speeds was brewing behind the scenes.
A war of the speeds. Okay, you've got to tell me more about this.
So two big names in the music industry, Columbia Records and RCA Victor, they were locked in this battle for, dominance.
This sounds intense. Was it all about, whose record could spin the fastest? Or was there more to it?
Oh, it went way beyond just the technology, This was about controlling how people listened to, bought, and shared music.
Oh, wow. So it was about the whole experience.
It really was a battle for the soul of the music experience. High stakes.
All right. So where does the 45 fit into all of this?
Well, that's where RCA Victor steps in with their secret weapon, the 7-inch 45, launched in 1948.
So they were like, we've got something even better.
Exactly. And they came ready to fight, armed with some serious advantages. You see, those old 78s made of shellac, they were brittle and prone to shattering.
Ouch, not good for a dance party.
Not at all. But the 45, vinyl.
Oh, vinyl, much better.
Way more flexible and durable, much less likely to break.
Guess you could say the 45 was a bit more flexible.
You got it. But it wasn't just about durability. Think about the size 7 inches versus 10 of 50. You could carry a lot more music with you.
Yeah, portability was key back then.
Huge. Plus, vinyl had lower surface noise, so you got clearer sound without all that crackle and hiss of shellac.
So better sound quality, and you could bring more tunes to a party. Sounds like RCA Victor was onto something.
Absolutely. And this all coincided with the rise of jukeboxes in the 1950s. They were popping up everywhere.
Oh yeah, the classic jukeboxes. What made the 45 and jukeboxes such a perfect match?
Think about what we just said about the 45. Small, durable, perfect for picking individual songs.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Plus, for teenagers who didn't have a ton of money, a single was way more affordable than a whole album.
So jukeboxes gave the 45 a stage to really shine. But did this translate into, big sales?
Oh, yeah, definitely. In 1955, Bill Haley and the Comets sold 3 million copies of Rock Around the Clock on 45s.
Rock Around the Clock.
Yep. And even Elvis Presley's rise to fame. That was partly fueled by his 45 cover of That's All Right.
Wait a minute, Elvis's That's All Right. I thought wasn't that originally someone else's song?
It was. The original version, by Arthur Crudup, was actually one of the very first 45s ever released.
Wow, talk about a full circle moment. So the 45 was really hitting its stride.
It was a cultural phenomenon. Think about all those legendary bands, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones. They released their early music on 45s.
Okay, this is going to blow your mind. The best-selling single of all time.
Go on, guess.
Tough one. Gotta be something iconic.
White Christmas by Bing Crosby. Over 50 million copies sold.
Bing Crosby? White Christmas? Seriously?
No kidding. It just goes to show you can't underestimate the power of a good holiday tune.
I guess not. But hold on, didn't the 45's popularity eventually start to fade? What happened?
Yeah, the 45's reign couldn't last forever, right? In the 1980s, as jukeboxes started to fade out and people started focusing more on albums, well, the 45 kind of took a hit.
Yeah, makes sense. The music scene was changing. But, we were talking about Elvis and the Beatles and how they released their music on 45s. Did the 45 have a deep impact on the music itself, do you think?
Definitely. The 45, especially with the jukeboxes, it really changed how accessible music was.
You're right. You didn't need to buy a whole album to enjoy one song anymore.
Right. Just drop a dime in the jukebox and pick your jam.
So easy.
Exactly. And for teenagers, who didn't have much money, the 45 was huge. They could listen to the music they loved without spending a fortune.
So the 45 was like the soundtrack for a whole generation then. Did it change how artists made music?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Artists started focusing on making catchy songs, songs that would stand out on the jukebox and radio. The 45 kind of made those short, powerful songs really important.
So like all those iconic hits from the 50s and 60s, those super catchy melodies, that's the 45's influence.
Yeah, pretty much. It's amazing how a little record like that could shape how music was made for years. But, even with all the streaming and everything today, people still seem to love that direct connection with music, that feeling you get from a 45.
I totally get that. Like, it's a little ritual, right? Picking a song and putting it on, it's like saying, this song right here, right now, this matters. Speaking of, what about the B-side? Was that part of the 45's success?
Oh, yeah, definitely. The B-side wasn't just an extra, A lot of times it was a chance for artists to experiment, to show a different side of themselves.
Kind of like a hidden track, a bonus for the fans. That's almost the opposite of how music is today, where everything is so, I don't know, perfect and polished.
Yeah, you're right. The B-side was a reminder that there's always more to discover. You just got to look for it.
And speaking of looking for things, what about those serious vinyl collectors? What kind of 45s are they hunting for?
Well, it depends on their taste and what kind of music they like, of course. But usually, those rare pressings, limited editions, and 45s with the picture sleeves, those are the ones that go for a lot of money.
So it's not just the music, it's the whole thing, like a collector's item.
Exactly. It's like a little piece of history, and some of those little pieces can be worth a lot.
Crazy. It's amazing to think how the 45 went from being the underdog to being a cultural icon and something that people collect.
It just shows how powerful music is, right?
Yeah.
And how something as simple as a small record could change things forever. But thinking about all this stuff from the past, it makes me wonder where we go from here. We've talked about the history, the technology, the culture, the collectors. What does this whole vinyl comeback mean for the 45 today?
That's a great question. Is it just a fad, because people are nostalgic? Or is there something more to it?
That's a tough one. I guess we'll have to keep spinning that vinyl and see where it takes us.
Sounds like a plan. Stay tuned for part 3, where we'll dig deeper into the 45's place in the modern world.
All right, welcome back. We've been on quite the trip with the 7-inch 45, haven't we? From those early days, fighting to be noticed, to shaping the sound of generations, it's been a wild ride. But here's the big question. With vinyl making a comeback, does the 45 still have a place? Is it just nostalgia or something more?
That's a really interesting question. I think the answer is kind of complicated. I mean, there's definitely some nostalgia there, right? For a lot of people, vinyl reminds them of a simpler time, when things felt more real, maybe even a bit magical.
Yeah, it's like holding a piece of music history, not just some file on your computer.
Exactly. But it's not just nostalgia, I don't think. There's this growing appreciation for things that are real, physical.
Yeah.
Especially with everything being digital these days.
Right. It's like a reaction to all the digital stuff we have now. People want something that they can touch, something more real. And vinyl, with the whole ritual of putting on a record, the sound of the needle, the album art, it gives you that. Totally. And the sound quality too, right? Audiophiles, they love the sound of vinyl, that warmth and depth you don't always get with digital music.
I get that. But a lot of the hype around vinyl is for albums. So where does the 45 fit in now?
That's true, but the 45 is finding its way, I think. For one thing, it's cheaper than an album, so it's a good way for people to try vinyl without spending a lot.
Like a little taste test of the vinyl world.
Exactly. And for bands and musicians, the 45 is a cool way to release limited edition stuff or special singles, It makes it feel more exclusive and collectible for their fans.
So they're playing into that collector's mindset we talked about. Smart.
And then you got DJs. They've always loved 45s. They're so easy to use and mix with.
True. You can't beat that quick switch for a smooth mix, so it sounds like the 45 might not be top dog anymore, but it's definitely not going away.
Yeah, it's changing and finding new ways to, connect with people who love music today.
The little record that could keeps on spinning. So what's the takeaway from all this as we finish our deep dive into the 45?
Well, I think we can say the 45 changed music forever. The way we listen to music, the way music is made, it all goes back to the 45. And now with vinyl coming back, the 45 is getting a new life. It shows that sometimes the simplest things have the biggest impact.
Well said. We've covered the history, the technology, the culture, even the collectors. I hope this deep dive made you want to dig out your old turntable, maybe even go find some 45s yourself. You never know what musical gems you might discover.
Who knows, maybe you'll rediscover the joy of listening to music one song at a time.
That's it for this deep dive. Keep those turntables spinning. And don't forget to give a 45 a spin every now and then.